Friday, the 22nd of May, the year of our Lord 2020. It's an early Memorial Day weekend. It's a little dreary here in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital of the United States of the Federal Reserve. We're right across from the street from the Supreme Court, which now does everything by conference call. That's because of the pandemic initiated in central China under the auspices of the Chinese Communist Party and allowed to actually go out and devastate the world. The chain of title back on those decisions goes right to Beijing. Okay, we're in episode now 190. I want to thank everybody. Over 8.2 million downloads, over 100 million views. John Fredericks Radio Network, FM 99.1, 103.9 in Chicago. Welcome all the folks in Chicago. Of course, our co-production partner with John Fredericks is America's Voice.News on Dish Channel 219 and Newsmax TV. Chris Ruddy and the guys down in Florida. I want to thank them. Now in 70 million homes. Also for the job they do, putting some B-roll over the show, shown in the evenings at, I think, 11 o'clock on Newsmax. And that B-roll is great, so you don't have to look at the ugly mugs of, Stephen K. Bannon and company. Got Jack Maxey, Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam. A solemn weekend. This is the weekend that we honor the honored dead of our military efforts, the efforts that have freed more people than any nation in the history of mankind. And over 95,000 of our fellow countrymen are dead because of this pandemic. I think for the next couple of days, President Trump is actually going to be commemorating this. He's going to have, I think, the flags at half staff. President Trump will be back at Arlington National Cemetery on Monday for the traditional talk, speech, and being there at the Tomb of the Unknown. Very solemn weekend, Memorial Day. Remember, it's not Veterans Day. We're actually doing a special. To talk about some programming notes. Number one, Pete Hexis is going to be with us back next week. Just saying what his publisher's saying. When Hexis was on, sold more books than any other show. Just saying. That's because #War and Pandemic, their readers understand the book's a little backed up. I think actually the first edition sold out already. Hexis on fire. Great interview.
They're going to put your blurb up on the book jacket now.
Man.
Come on, dude.
That's why I didn't bring the book down here.
They're saving Steve for the paperback.
Wow.
He's going to narrate the audiobook.
Yeah, Pete. I'm just saying. Next time your publisher asks for a pull quote in your second memoir, you can put that quote where the sun doesn't shine. Now, I know I got it. Mark Levin and these guys, all the long-standing Trump guys, right? I know they were on the same pilgrimage you were on, Hannity and all of them, right? So, no, it's a great book. It was a great interview. He's going to be back next week. Also, we have Descent into Hell Part 6. Tomorrow's the persecution of religion in China. You're going to get Chinese voices on there. We also have special guest Miles Guo is going to be talking about the 4 May. He's going to be talking about 4 June. He's going to be talking about the 4th of July. He's going to connect all the 4s in 3 consecutive months. Quite interesting. Mara Monahan's going to be on. And Mara Monahan and also a Chinese colleague called Jeremiah are going to deconstruct and analyze the speech of Matthew Pottinger, the Deputy National Security Advisor. He gave a speech at the University of Virginia's conference. It had to be done digitally. Matthew couldn't be there. But he did a speech in Mandarin about the 4th of May movement, was the historic Chinese Revolution that really started the Republic, ended the Qing dynasty. And it was very moving, in perfect Mandarin, and tied together the spiritual values of the West to the underlying philosophical and spiritual values of the Chinese people. And I've got to tell you, I have heard more about that speech from the Chinese, crickets in the mainstream media, crickets by the Council on Foreign Relations and all the swells that go up there and all these shows. Never hear anything about this. First time a senior American official has given a public address to the Chinese people in perfect Mandarin. So moving. I've had so many Chinese people come to me really in tears and say, I cannot believe he directly addressed the Chinese people in this very moving. He said it was so sophisticated the way he taught it. So we got Mara Monahan and a Chinese counterpart to go through that all tomorrow from 10 to noon. We have another Descent into Hell special. And then with our colleagues at WABC on Sunday afternoon, I think from 4 to 6-ish, it's going to be on WABC New York. They're doing an entire day of special broadcasting. I think they've got Kimberly Guilford, I think maybe even Mary Giuliani, got a lot of the big personalities in New York to commemorate Memorial Day on Sunday. We're doing WABC special on Memorial Day. And then on Monday, from 10 to 11, we're going to have our Memorial Day special. Remember, Memorial Day is always a very special day for us. And I keep saying Memorial Day is not Veterans Day. I'm a veteran. We get our day on November 11th, the 11th day of the 11th month, the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month that commemorated the end of the First World War. That's Veterans Day. Memorial Day is for the honored dead of our wars. And these wars freed more people than any other nation on the face of the earth, right? From Europe to the Pacific to Asia to Eastern Europe, all of it, the Middle East. So very honored to have these specials this weekend, and just stay tuned. 10 to noon tomorrow for the Chinese special, Descent into Hell Part 6, persecution of religious individuals by the Chinese Communist Party. We've got 7 or 8 Chinese, some from the Chinese nationalists from the mainland. You don't want to miss this because it's quite moving. These are the personal stories that if you're a religious believer, what happens to you. It's going to be tomorrow. We start with the Christians. We're going to get to the Buddhists in the coming weeks, the Falun Gong, the Uyghurs, all of it in the days and weeks ahead. And then Memorial Day special on Sunday and Memorial Day special on Monday. And Pete Hexeth next week. So let's get back into rumbling. And also want to say before we get rolling about Fortune Favors the Bold. Listen, we got a new sponsor. In fact, our first sponsor. We've been very hesitant to have sponsors. We want to find somebody perfect. And this is a perfect time to do it because everybody's uncertain in business. We spend time about reopening the country. What do you have to know? We had yesterday David Rifkin. Guys, I got so much great feedback from sophisticated people on the trading desk in a company saying, hey, this liabilities issue is so complicated. Thank you guys for giving Rifkin 20 minutes to walk through the Wall Street Journal piece. NetSuite by Oracle is our sponsor, and this is the software package in the cloud that can help you get organized on your business, whether it's your financial modeling, HR, your inventory. Listen, it's a new day. Nobody knows nothing about what's going to happen in the future. We're trying to cross this bridge in the chasm, but if you get a tool that works and you get a tool that helps you understand where you are and where you're going to go, it only helps. So that's NetSuite by Oracle. And go to, we got a special place you can go to, netsuite.com/Bannon. You get the special tour. They got 7 action steps you can take today as a business owner. It doesn't matter if the business is $1 million or $100 million or anything in between or even less than $1 million. Get into it. If you want to get a business, you want to start a business, maybe now's the time that you're going to do it. So economic uncertainty creates opportunity. And remember, as an entrepreneur, something like Nestle helps you mitigate risk, and that's the key thing for an entrepreneur: know how to mitigate risk. Okay, we're going to go back to brother Joe Biden here.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff, and in the previous hour, obviously, we went through Joe Biden, letting people know what qualifies if you're going to be black or not, which is not getting the best response on the Breakfast Club's.
But how's it handling on Twitter? What's the response on Twitter? What's the update on this?
There are now 19,000 votes on this Breakfast Club AM poll. The question being, Joe Biden said, if you have a problem figuring out if you are for him or Trump, you ain't black. Do you agree? The options are wait, what, no, and absolutely. And wait, what, no is now at 89%, with just 11% in agreement with Joe Biden.
Yeah, I haven't seen such windmill dunkage since Dominique Wilkins in the 1988 slam dunk contest. But one thing I want to make sure to flag for folks, look, we've been talking in this first hour about China's takeover of Hong Kong and how dangerous it is with the ramifications. We played, and we have another good clip coming here from Max Baucus. The Wall Street Journal, who we've been critical at various points with regard to the editorial board as well as the op-ed page. Lead editorial this morning, China moves on Hong Kong. Beijing plans a national security law. Is Taiwan next? That's not a shot across the bow. That is taking the full bazooka from the Wall Street Journal and firing it right at the CCP. To go and throw that down, that number one, that's forward looking. Got to give Jiggot and team credit on that. Number two, there is nothing soft or indirect. That is a 2x4 right upside your head.
Before we go further, I spent a lot of time, but you spent time in both Hong Kong, in mainland China, talking to senior leaders, giving your perspective on the United States, where we are. How were you caught by surprise of how brutal the CCP now after the kind of freedom marches and riots they've had in the summer of last year, of how they're moving forward and kind of put it in the grill of the United States?
Yes, because this is, look, Hong Kong has always been the kind of the protected bastion. I mean, this is where all the capital is. If you know anything about it, pay attention to business in China, CCP has for a long time wanted to go and move all the business to Shanghai. And they've pretty explicitly thrown down on people and said, don't rent in Hong Kong, don't buy, because you're going to need to relocate to Shanghai. That's their play. And in fact, Hong Kong, which is one of the coolest cities on the planet, if you've not spent time there, do it before it's closed off permanently. But the fact of the matter is, they're supposed to. That's where the free capital can flow through, because everyone knows that the RMB is funny money and it doesn't really work and don't have democracy. But Hong Kong, we have that little bit of democracy. They've now thrown out any pretense of that. They're saying, "Hey guys, we're coming in. We're taking this thing over. Forget this whole 50-year handoff. We're moving in for the kill."
But I want to bring in the Brits here for a second, because look, when I started going to Hong Kong as a naval officer in the 70s. It immediately is one of the reasons as a kid I always wanted to join the Pacific Fleet. I wanted to get to China, and what I wanted to do was go to Hong Kong. To go there absolutely blew you away. It was still a British colony, but it ran in it was both China and England. I thought the best of both. And you'd have the Chinese judges walking across to the Supreme Court with the red robes and the wigs. It was so old school, but it worked. It had a certain precision of how it worked. It was still that, and the Brits under Margaret Thatcher understood they couldn't keep this for a long time, but they spent a long time negotiating. In fact, Jonah Bianco of the American Bond Foundation, the Americans got stiffed on the bonds. The British got paid off because they realized they were doing a macro deal. But at that time when they did it, with Margaret Thatcher, the Iron Lady, it was a 50-year deal, one country, two systems. They were guaranteed by the United Kingdom and the United States really as guarantors, right, to even do this. That I think we actually passed legislation at the time to kind of support it. That's how serious this was, but what a huge thing about the handover and all that in 1997 for years. And for these guys to roll, and they've a little bit taken each year, taking it back. But now this is a bold move. Where is the United Kingdom? Where's Chris Patton? Where's Tony Blair? It was on his watch. It was Chris Patton. Where are all these guys today to stand up for the greatness of the United Kingdom, who were really the guys that made the deal?
Look, the British government, the spokesman for the Prime Minister today, saying they expect China to keep up its end of the bargain, but that's about as far as the British government's willing to go at this point. I would like to know, where's Prince Charles on this, because Prince Charles, the heir to the throne, is the guy who went there in 1997 and presided over the handover ceremony. It's really worth reading, and I'm going to tweet and I'm going to pop it into the YouTube live chat. The edited extracts from Prince Charles's travel journal, which was released in 2006. I've read it. The section called "The Handover of Hong Kong, or the Great Chinese Takeaway," and that's in his words. And he writes about the propaganda speech that Jiang Zemin gives there. He writes about the handover, and he says something that haunts me from the time I read this. He says, "Thus we left Hong Kong to her fate and the hope that Martin Lee, the leader of the Democrats, would not be arrested."
And quickly before we go to break, Bloomberg, this isn't just us speculating on it. Bloomberg out this morning, China dares Trump to hit back with Hong Kong power grab. And with Xi sending a clear message to Trump, we're going to do what we want in Hong Kong, and we're not scared of the consequences. It's on.
Game on, ladies and gentlemen. Do you want Trump or do you want Biden? We're going to be back. War and Pandemic in a moment.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Welcome back. The United States is being challenged. They're being challenged directly now by both the pandemic, and now we're being challenged geopolitically, up in our grill, as Bloomberg just says. They're throwing down. If you don't think this has anything to do with your life, you are just absolutely dead wrong. This is like being alive on September 1st of 1939. Well, maybe that's too harsh about Poland. This is like being alive in 1937 and 38. about Czechoslovakia and about Austria, when they just start knocking them down one at a time and, hey, nothing with me, no problem with me. Well, guess what? One day in Pearl Harbor and the other day at Normandy, it's going to become part of your life. That's why I keep saying we're in 1938, and this is another situation like Austria with the Nazis. We let Hong Kong go. Hey, they're going to start rolling. So this is going to be big league. And Donald Trump is a guy. And let's hear. We have Joe Biden's voice. Let's see. Here's Joe Biden's solution to what's going on in Hong Kong right now.
I'd be at the UN with my UN ambassador, and I'd be insisting and calling out what the United States has always done. Overwhelming violation not only of an agreement, but of human rights.
During the Obama, the 8 years of the Obama-Biden administration, the Uyghur concentration camps were built, the House Christians were persecuted, the Tibetan Buddhists were, the Dalai Lama were terrorized, right? The organ harvesting ramped up. Joe, what did you do in the entire 8 years when Barack Obama said, Joe, we're going to pivot to Asia? Okay, we're going to get out of the Middle East. I ran as an anti-war guy. That's how I beat Hillary in the primary. We're getting out of the Middle East. You got this pivot to Asia. It's you're my wingman. You got it. Got that? Go have your 25 hours of dinners one-on-one with Xi. Did you discuss anything except what Hunter, the deadbeat drug addict son of yours, yes, deadbeat drug, and I can say this, as a naval officer, you, sir, are a disgrace to get that kid with his drug problems, to get him a commission in the United States Navy is outrageous. As many issues as we have in the fleet with trying to control drugs, particularly among young kids coming in, that their parents turn over to the naval service. Okay, they're going to serve their country on combatants in the South China Sea, but it's upon the naval service to make sure they have a safe and secure environment. And that's one of the leading things an officer has to do. I was the berthing officer for the engineering department on a destroyer. I know how tough it is when you're 22 or 23 years old and you got a bunch of kids down there going to these foreign ports. The responsibility is on you to make sure these kids don't have access to drugs. Joe Biden's son, kicked out of the United States Navy after 6 days? Sir, you are a disgrace. What you've done with this kid, deadbeat drug addict, okay? And you've mollycoddled him for his entire life. The reason he's a loser, sir, is because of you. The reason he's a loser is because of you. And you got him this commission, gun decked the whole thing, gave him a commission in the United States Navy, have him act like he acted. A drug addict, a deadbeat, a disgrace.
Well, also this. You don't give a commission to a kid like that who's 41 years old. At that time, they had to, even if he was crystal clean, he wouldn't have likely gotten a commission. And then secondarily, let's remember this drug addict, and he got an administrative discharge. An officer on cocaine with an administrative discharge, forget about it.
Didn't get dishonorable discharge. It's outrageous.
And then this same
we want
guy,
all the records on Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. By the way, the 25 hours, what did you discuss besides getting the Bank of China, which is the central bank of the Chinese Communist Party? Everything that they're destroying right now in Hong Kong. Where's Martin Leeds right now? The prince. Where is he? He's 81 years old, one of the great heroes of the West. Where is that guy right now?
In prison.
He's in prison. Imprisoned by the Chinese Communist Party, financed and backed by the Bank of China, which is the bank that gave Hunter Biden the $1.5 billion, the deadbeat drug addict son. Sir, when we release Max Baucus, when you're briefed and tell us about the 25 hours of one-on-one that Joe Biden had, how many hours we're talking about the deal for your son? But who should have been, Hunter is such a brilliant young man. He absolutely should have gotten $1.5 billion because he's such a great investor, right? He's such a brilliant. Hey, Chris Hines, I know Hines ran for the Hill on this thing. The guy's got a little class. Hey, you can't run and you can't hide, okay? You're part of this. You're wrapped up in this tar baby. You got to come forward with everything, with the inside deal. And did they put any money into surveillance companies? That's the question I got. Is the great firewall every week, Hunter Biden, what you should do instead of gallivanting around L.A. and the Hollywood Hills with your next baby mama, right? What you should do is listen to War Room Pandemic, the specials on Saturday morning, the voices of Lao Beijing, old 100 names in China, okay? the way they're tortured and tormented. And whether you're a Muslim or whether you're a Buddhist or whether you're a Falun Gong, part of the spiritual movement, or a Catholic or a Christian, or just somebody that wants to study philosophy and have their own spiritual journey, you can't have it. Because the atheistic, communistic, materialistic, totalitarian dictatorship that is the Chinese Communist Party that by the way, with all your talk about, I'm going to call you out I'm going to the UN, call you out for human rights, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. All of this was going on, Joe, when you had the 25 hours of one-on-one dinners. Did you ever bring up did you bring up the Falun Gong? Did you bring up the live organ harvesting? Did you bring up the Tibetan Buddhists? Did you bring up the concentration camps of the Uyghurs? Did you bring up the torture of the underground house Christians? Did you bring up the crushing of the churches of the underground Catholic Church? Joe Biden, did you bring up any of it? No, sir, you did not. You did not. And if you did, then release the transcripts and let's see. I don't remember Xi coming. Here's what I remember Xi doing: coming to the Rose Garden when you were in charge and signing a document that had two basic features to it. Not going to do any more cyber warfare intrusions on American companies, and we're not going to militarize the South China Sea. In 6 months, as NPR, as a PBS shows in their special, in 6 months there's more intrusions than ever in cyber. And they totally militarized the South China Sea against all environmental concerns. Biden, they played you. Now, my question is, sir, were you in on the fix? Joe Biden's got to stand. Were you in on the fix? Is this the side deal, you and Max Baucus? Max Baucus is on the payroll. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the reason Donald Trump is president of the United States. The managed decline of our country by elites. Always got their hands out. Chris Iacovella, the CEO of the American Securities Association, he's out there just trying to protect the little regional firms that have companies trying to go public, just trying to get a level playing field so that American entrepreneurs can get access to capital. So they don't have the CCP-backed companies that have the capital. This is what's happening. Now everybody's saying, oh, I didn't realize all the drugs were made over there. I didn't realize they get access to capital. I didn't realize they didn't play by the same rules. I didn't realize all this went on. Because the mainstream media is not going to show you. Let's talk about. We had 101 vote the other day and said that we don't vote 100-0 on anything, except back in December, as Jack Maxey points out, we did vote 100-0 on something, and that would be Hong Kong.
The Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act of 2019. If you've been following this show for a long time, prior to the Christmas, we sort of celebrated that, showed a real act of courage on the part of the Senate. Now, we have till the end of this month to certify that China is keeping up its bargain and allowing Hong Kong to maintain its autonomy under the British agreement.
Let's talk. This came about because last summer, the kids, and these kids are like the Patriots in 1775, they finally had enough of it. Jimmy Lee came on 60 Minutes and he cried. At the end, it says, my generation's failure to stand up for the deal the British cut, to stand up and make sure the CCP did not take our rights. He said, we failed. We failed. It's these young kids who are totally apolitical. If you've ever been to Hong Kong, they have no interest in politics. It's all about capitalism. They stood up in the streets, tear gassed, fire hosed, beaten, and week after week after week, and finally came up in the United States that Ted Cruz and others put this forward, and the entire Senate came in 100-0.
And we have till the end of the month to certify. So this could be in
end
2
of May.
weeks. We'll
2
see.
weeks.
We'll see what the power of the United States government is to affect change. And the other thing that's really disturbing here that people aren't realizing is that China has slowly eaten away. And we said it last week. The Chinese Hong Kong police were world renowned for being incorruptible in a very corrupt city.
They were like Bobbies. I mean, they were like the British police. They were incorruptible, didn't wear firearms.
Very squared away guys, and in the last decade, it has become completely infected with the People's Republic of China, PLA. And they are actively suppressing the rights of these students. They've changed their tactics. They're starting to target what they perceive to be weakest kids in the group. It's very scary.
I want to give a shout out to National Pulse and to Raheem Kassam, because this is the type of investigative reporting. Max Baucus is a perfect example of the rot in our country. Okay, this is a guy that comes out of the Northern Plains, comes here to D.C. completely captured right? One of these guys totally captured by the elites. They invite him to the cocktail parties, tell him how smart you are. This is the way the Chinese Communist Party, you're brilliant, you really understand us. Next thing you know, you're on their payroll. And this is about the managed decline of the United States. And you saw part of it. This is what happened to the United Kingdom. This is what happened in the UK. The elites sold out, and you started to see this rot. And it's happened in the United States. It's the reason Donald Trump is president of the United States.
Yeah, I had a text message from a congressman yesterday, I won't say who, that said, I can't believe, because we have the byline on the article, on the Max Boykus article, is me, Raheem Kassam, and Natalie Winters, and young girl, up and coming reporter here in DC. And he said, "Is a foreigner and a teenager have to uncover these things, and all of the the hundreds of millions of dollars that pour into the conservative Inc. enterprises and all these Oppo firms." I want to bring you back to this Prince Charles thing from '97, which should have been a harbinger for us. He says, quote, "At the end of this awful Soviet-style display, we had to watch the Chinese soldiers goose step onto the stage and haul down the Union Jack and raise the Chinese flag. The ultimate horror was the artificial wind, which made the flags flutter enticingly."
I remember that, even as it happened. And then they got on the yacht, the Queen's yacht, and
That's
they
right.
left Hong Kong like they came in 1842, I think it was. We're going to be back with War and Pandemic in a second.
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
Look, 2020 has been a gut punch to American business, and if you're going to succeed, you need every possible advantage. That's why the world's #1 cloud business system, NetSuite by Oracle, is yours. Smart companies, whether it's $1 million or $100 million. This is the complete package. And now they've got the 7 action businesses need to take now. This is about your financials, about your economic forecast, about human resources, about inventory, all of it. This is the complete package. Remember, fortune favors the bold. The reason we're so glad to have NetSuite by Oracle as a sponsor. Go to netsuite.com/Bannon. You can get the complete tour of the entire system. Remember, this is a tool you can use in very uncertain times, and the times could not get any more uncertain. This is the great fourth turning in American history. We don't know what's on the other side of this chasm, but we know we're going to punch our way out of it because, as President Trump says, nothing is inevitable. That means by human action and human agency, just like the United States has always done, we're going to determine our own fate. What we try to do on the show every day is to lay out the, kind of set the framework for that. So you can think about it, both in the pandemic, the economic crisis, the financial crisis, the geopolitical crisis, so that you can make individual business decisions for your family and community. I want to thank the NetSuite team at Oracle. Go to the site netsuite.com, NetSuite, all one word, /Bannon, and go take the tour of 7 actions. Okay, I want to return now. Let's go. Are we still on? We're still on the geopolitics, but we got so much on the pandemic side. There's a lot breaking about tests being done. Remember, therapeutics, mass testing, antibodies testing. You got to converge on this. I think this is what the DC Education Department's thinking of when they say cure. There's not going to be a cure anytime in the foreseeable future. And maybe Moderna comes with a vaccine. God bless them. Maybe that guy's the new Jonas Salk. I hope so. I don't know. People tell me there's no vaccine for SARS. Actually, somebody was in my grill at the end of the first week when we talked about SARS, I talked about thing. They were in my grill. Oh, there was a vaccine, but they stopped the work on it because there wouldn't have been enough market. And I did some checkings. I heard that's nonsense. There's a huge market. Everybody in China would have taken it if you had it because SARS puts the fear of God into them. As you know, Jack Max, you picked it up on a blog. On Boxing Day, when Raheem Kassam was doing his Boxing Day special on the old War Room impeachment, you had a couple hours and you pulled it off. So we know how big this is. And now, look, there's on the therapeutic side, whether it's going to be remdesivir or whether it's going to be interferon. I think in Hong Kong right now, they're actually testing a cocktail, right? Like you have a cocktail to manage HIV. Hydroxychloroquine. We're going to have other experts on next week. This thing's so politicized just because Donald Trump's taking it. Now CNN's in meltdown every day. Lancet's out with a new article, Jack, a new publication. We love Lancet. Not crazy about their editorial page, but love them as a journal.
Well, we first found out about a Washington Post story this morning saying hydroxychloroquine drug touted by Trump. This is their title. Give me one moment.
It was a very low key title, very pro Trump. Wouldn't expect this out of the Jeff Bezos, Amazon, Washington Post.
All right, well, forget the Washington Post. Let's go right to the Lancet article. Okay, they did a retrospective study of thousands of patients treated around the world. Now, what I found the most interesting in this study as I'm going through it is that they say that they used patients dating all the way back to December 20th.
So this is in Lancet. The Washington Post has got a very snarky headline that says, hey, the drug taken by Trump, there's a new study out that it causes problems. So obviously everybody's going to go click on the story. But the story talks about a study that's in Lancet. But the buried lead in the study is that, and they don't name the hospitals, right? But they say it's from multinational hospitals, from hospitals all over the world, right?
I'll read the quote. This is insane. They say that they were laboratory tested people. So if you had a laboratory tested patient on December 20th, when did they catch that? Mm-hmm. This is more proof that Donald Trump was absolutely right in the letter he sent the other day.
Hey, Joe Biden, in your 25 hours of can you get? I think Jason Miller's got it. If a guy spends 25 hours with you one-on-one with dinner, I think you got a cell number, right? That means you've got a relationship, you think?
So I don't know if I've ever had 25 hours of one-on-one dinners with anyone. Like that. That's like, are they common law at that point? Like, what's going on?
But you would think he has a relationship, right? He knows the guy. He could call the guy?
You certainly wouldn't say, hey, Mr. U.S. Ambassador to the UN, can you please go to the UN Security Council and beg for us to get on the radar screen, and then we're going to go in and play Model UN on the weekend. No, you're going to pick up the phone, be a man, and call she directly.
Here's the big question. Which character does Joe Biden play? Is he Eeyore? Is he Rue? Or is he Tigger?
Oh, man, you're going to this.
No.
It's Jackson. Now officially banned. Now the CCP is going to come after him. Nothing triggers she more than being Winnie the Pooh, right? So, but this is important. December 20th, buried lead found by Jack Maxey.
And let me read the quotation because it's very clear. We included all patients hospitalized between December 20th, 2019 and April 14, 2020 at hospitals participating in the registry.
Okay, we're going to reach out to Lancet today and say, hey, you don't list the hospitals, but we'd like to know, is the hospital you're talking about for the 20 December patient, is that one of the Chinese hospitals? Because there are hospitals from China that they pulled here. Just where's that patient on the 20th of December? Well, that means they caught it beforehand.
Well, what's crazy is we remember Bat Lady in the Nature article says that she gets called on the 30th of December and is asked to come back to Wuhan to test this novel virus and define what it is. Now Lancet is saying that they already knew what it was on December 20th?
Another buried lead that Jack Maxey found. When they call her to come back, the first comment across her lips, I hope that this did not come from one of my labs.
And then the even better comment a month later when she's burnishing her story a little better, she said, I would give my life, I swear on my life. You're darn right you're swearing on your life, honey.
Oh, because the CCP had her in there, had the screws going on her thumbnails, right? Come on. She said when caught by surprise on December 30th, the first thing she told Scientific American, I think it was, or Nature,
I believe.
Nature. I think it was Scientific.
Maybe they both of
one
them
of the journal. The first thing it came across. I hope this did not come from one of my labs. Come from the lab.
Absolutely.
Where Batley was doing the experiments that may or may not have been funded by Tony Fauci. The Fauci's, after spending all the money with Echo Alliance and the University of Texas at Galveston and whatever the Fauci was doing to fund, gain of function experiments. Remember, War Room, a pandemic crowd, gain of function, write it down, be the first in your neighborhood to understand this. The Fauci is now breaking out. He's going, talk about a guy going rogue, right? This guy, you got to throw a net over him. Because every day it's another adventure.
Well, you got to see this. So we're going to play this clip of Dr. Fauci joined Anderson Cooper and Dr. Sanjay Gupta on their coronavirus town hall last night. And this was so much. I mean, literally, you would have thought Dr. Fauci walking into the city with the big, massive palm leaves, just waving up and down, screaming, Hosanna Fauci, Hosanna Fauci. As he came walking in hall, I got to play this thing. You're going to love it.
now. Taking your questions shortly is White House Coronavirus Task Force member Dr. Anthony Fauci, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the National Institutes of Health. Dr. Fauci, we're incredibly happy that you are here. We've got audience questions for you, as always, and we're going to start with some of our own. There's certainly a lot of people who respect you and want to hear from you and Dr. Birx and other health professionals on a daily basis. I guess my first question is why aren't we hearing from the Coronavirus Task Force on a daily basis anymore? And if they aren't going to have daily briefings about facts and science, can you or the NIH or can the CDC have their own daily briefings with top scientists? Because I think there's a lot of Americans out there who really still want to hear from scientists every day.
Yeah, well, thank you, Anderson. That's a good point. I think you're going to probably be seeing a little bit more of me and my colleagues. There was a period of time there was a little bit lull in our being out there with the press, but I believe that's going to change. We've been talking with the communications people, and they realize we need to get some of these information out, particularly some of the scientific issues for which I'm predominantly responsible for. So,
by the way, I got to say, we agree with this.
This is what we've been saying for long. Hold
it.
it. They should have it over HHS, and it should be the business and science guys, and Fauci should be up there with evidence, database, science.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Not
this
his
is
spin.
Look, I mean, this is good. Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, the rest of the team, you guys go and hold your things. You guys own your models. If you have models, you own your math, you own your projections, you own your recommendations to the American public.
But I agree 1,000%. I would have liked to have seen Vice President Pence make this announcement instead of the Fauci making it with Anderson Cooper after they're doing the palm leaves to him. And, Fauci's the return of Fauci, right? The Dr. Fauci is back. Right, humping the book deal, right? Book deal Fauci, and talking about his. No, they should. First off, they should bifurcate. Larry Kudlow, and I love Larry, good buddy, friend, good guy. Understand the pressure over there. His interview with Bob Costa, it could have been better. Okay, you got to bifurcate the committee. Have Mnuchin and Larry and others, Navarro, talking the details of jobs, and the recovery, and have Fauci over at HHS, away from the White House correspondents, because they don't know what they're doing. They're a bunch of actors, right? Get real science and business people over there and do real press briefings with real numbers and real data and analysis.
I do have to say, I find it galling a little bit for Fauci to come on and say, "Hey, I haven't had enough media time." Right? Is anybody of the belief that we haven't seen enough? Fauci, I like your nickname.
I don't know.
By the way.
He was having withdrawals. He was personally having withdrawals. I think Sanjay Gupta and Anderson were too.
You know why I like your nickname, the Fauci? Because the Fauci is like the Fonz, cool at first but jump the shark. Right, and that's exactly.
It's like the mooch. It's like the mooch. It's also like the mooch.
Happy Days, right?
It's like the mooch.
Right.
These short little Italian guys you can kind of put in your palm of your hand, right? After a while, just kidding, mooch.
The pocket Fauci.
The pocket Fauci.
Remember Pocket Elvis from Saturday Night Live? That was one of the best. It was like, hey, I'm tiny Elvis,
wow.
But tiny, but perfectly formed.
Got some breaking news here. Just popped into into our research group joint statement from the UK, Australia, and Canada on Hong Kong. We are deeply concerned at proposals for introducing legislation related to national security in Hong Kong. Legally binding joint declaration sets out the Hong Kong degree of autonomy, provides rights and freedoms, including that of the person, the press, assembly, association, and others. Making such a law on Hong Kong's behalf without the direct participation of its people, legislature, or judiciary would undermine the principle of one country, two systems.
So the empire stands up. So I want to talk about, before we go to break, we're talking about. Can I get a quick read on Charlemagne de God, what his poll is on Biden's really thing about
You know, Steve, I closed it.
You did? Okay.
Hold on, but on Charlemagne front.
Okay.
When you're Joe Biden, you're making so much bad news. We didn't even get to this bad news. Let me just play this from the Charlemagne the God interview.
Things everybody has in common in jail. One is they were the victims of abuse, or their kids were, or their mother was. Number two, can't read.
Okay, I'm going to play that one more time. So Joe Biden, pro-tipping
here?
us. I'm not sure if this is from his conversations with Corn Pop or whatever, but here is a Charlemagne the God about everyone in jail is abused and they can't read.
Only a couple things everybody has in common in jail. One is they were the victims of abuse, or their kids were, or their mother was. Number two, can't read.
Weird. Got the poll back up.
What's the poll?
89.5% say they don't agree with Joe Biden, that you ain't black if you have a problem figuring out if you are for him or Trump. Only 10.5% agree. 30,000 votes.
30,000 votes. Okay, we're gonna put one up today. Should Jack Maxey, yes or no, have his face, his image up on the War Room poster, the War Room banner? Vote now. We're going to get the vote.
Over yours.
We're going to get the vote. Jack Maxey, up or down?
War Room Pandemic with Stephen K. Bannon.
The epidemic is a demon, and we cannot let this demon hide.
War Room Pandemic. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
We've got the great Frank Gaffney this segment. We're going to get right to Frank. But before we do that, we just had Hong Kong, Australia, and Canada. The empire has struck back and actually had a very tough statement about it's unacceptable what the Chinese Communist Party is doing in Hong Kong. Here's what upsets me with all you royalists. Prince Charles can give me the memoir and all the whining and everything. Where was he last summer when these kids were being hit with the with the water cannons, hit with the tear gas, day in and day out, beaten, shot by rubber bullets? Remember, Miles Groh had the great cartoons or artwork done of the kids with their bleeding eyes and had the bandanas over. Where was he then? He is the moral equivalent of Joe Biden. It's all talk, and it's all happy talk. Where's his action?
Well, you would be confusing me being a monarchist with me endorsing particular people within the royal family. Those are two different things.
Thank God she's queen.
Exactly.
Thank God she's 93 years old.
The idea of the crown as a constitutional thing and is almost like a spiritual thing, or not even almost a spiritual thing. It survives beyond the quislinghood of certain people. We have had terrible people within and Prince Charles, on a raft of issues, has been one of those terrible people. He sold us out all across the world. He sold us out in the Middle East. He's done this in Hong Kong now as well. He's terrible on domestic issues as
he's the personification.
Climate change
He's
guy.
the personification of this managed decline of our elites. That's why he and Biden are kind of the same type of person.
He's the personification of what I said on the show last week. Strong times create weak men.
Strong town. I love that saying. Okay, now I want to bring on a strong man. This is Frank Gaffney. He's been a warrior and a fighter and a patriot since he served in the Reagan administration, 30 or 40 years ago? I guess 40 years ago now. Frank is the chairman emeritus of the Center for Security Policy, one of the great national defense security think tanks around, but also the co-founder of the rejuvenated Committee on the Present Danger. Frank, I was going to talk about Jasser, but we're kind of pressed for time. We had Chris on here earlier in the show. We've had Roger Robinson. We've got these victories now on capital markets. Give us your opinion. I know at the Committee of Present Danger, you've been driving this whole thing. We got to cut the Chinese Communist Party off from capital, and we got to cut them off from technology. Where do you think we stand?
Well, let me just go. Thank you for all that, Steve. Go back to what you were saying a moment ago about Joe Biden. If we talk what Joe Biden's done over the years, it'd be one thing. What Joe Biden has actually done, which we just learned last week, really, from John Solomon, who I think you've also had on the show, is he actually enabled an arrangement with China that permitted their companies to come in and get, by some estimates, $3 trillion out of our capital markets with a sweetheart deal that he engineered to assist what he considered to be a really good thing, the rise of China. What I believe we need to be doing right now, and our team with your leadership and help has been very, very strong about this, is to actually take this fight to the Chinese Communist Party, to cut off those companies that are in our markets, that are not playing by our rules, that are using our money to do terrible things to their own people and to threaten ours. And not least, Steve, in response to this deal with Hong Kong, I'm told that the legislation that is now being cooked up in the Senate to respond to what seems to be the ultimate final crackdown on the people of Hong Kong is to hold accountable a group of companies and entities that are very dependent upon our market that haven't been touched to this point. And that is the banks. The banks that are actually enabling so much of what's going on there, but they're doing it with our money. I think we have an opportunity here to really hurt the Chinese Communist Party where they live, which is with our money.
Look, this is with American working class pension fund money. It's the insurance company money they put away. It's all that. Real quickly, we got about 2 minutes. I want to go back to, because the buried lead, and we were going to get to this next week, but you bring it up, so let's tee off the weekend with it. Joe Biden, talk about this MOU. This is the buried lead in the Solomon Report. Talk about what Joe Biden actually negotiated with his buddy Xi.
Joe Biden apparently was asked in 2010, in 2011, and then again in 2013 with insistence by the Chinese Communist Party. I know Xi must have been in the mix, but I think it was others as well, to facilitate essentially a waiver for the Chinese Communist Party's companies that wanted to get into our capital markets but didn't want to play by our rules, didn't want to have to be transparent, didn't want to have to be accountable to meet our accounting standards specifically, didn't want to have to disclose material risk. They wanted American investors to be pouring money into black holes. And Joe Biden was ultimately the guy who helped make that happen. Now, the key thing, which is maybe what you want to titillate your audience about for the weekend, is a couple of months after that deal was done in May of 2013, you know what happened? Hunter Biden gets $1.5 billion from the Chinese Communist Party to play with, to invest.
Now, Frank, you know,
this is a very troubling possible cause and effect, quid pro quo, if I could use that expression.
Quid pro, Frank, we don't believe in conspiracies here. We're an anti-conspiracy theory place. However, as you know, there are no coincidences. Cause and effect. Do you believe, as we investigated and the National Pulse team goes after this, that there is a potential quid pro quo?
Well, it's hard to imagine on what other basis the Chinese would be giving that kind of walking around money to a guy like Hunter Biden, isn't it? And here's the explanation. It may not be the only reason. There may have been others, but the kind of money that we're talking about sure looks to us like a commission on a very big deal that was done by Papa Joe in his role as Vice President of the United States at the time. I'd look into it.
Frank, Bounce, how do people, what's your Twitter handle? How do people get more access to Frank Gaffney?
I'm at Frank Gaffney on Twitter, and please do check out presentdangerchina.org. It's a terrific resource, thanks in part to your good work too, Steve.
No, you rejuvenated. Frank Gaffney from the Reagan administration, a warrior, a cold warrior, and now a hot warrior in the war against the Chinese Communist Party. I want to thank Frank. Remember, for programming, we've got tomorrow, 10 to noon, The Voices of the Chinese People, Descent into Hell, Part 6, Voices about the Persecuted Christians in China. And then our Memorial Day special, Sunday afternoon, 4 to 6, and then Monday, 10 to noon. I want to thank the entire team. See you guys back here.
If you don't listen to it, you ain't black.